Okay, sorry everybody for the delay. Thanks for your patience. My name is Emily Lydell Painter, and first, before we get started, this is a little bit of a big room and we don't have too many people, so if anybody wants to voluntarily move up a little bit closer, it makes it a little bit easier to present. We will not judge you if you need to get up and leave at any point, so if you want to just come on down for friendly faces while presenting, it makes it nice and warm. So we are here with two wonderful presenters for you today to talk about apps and interactives for in the galleries. So first up we have Miranda Kerr, who is the manager of digital learning at the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago. And during the presentation, you can tweet her at her handle MirandaRHK. And then for our second presentation, we're going to have Samantha Diamond, who's the CEO of Culture Connect, which is an NYC and New Orleans-based technology company creating digital experiences exclusively for museums, and a local to boot, so she's the person to find when you want to know where to go for dinner tonight. So we're going to be doing this in order. Each person will take about a half an hour, so what we're aiming to do is about 20 to 25 minutes of presentation and then 5 minutes of Q&A afterwards. But I encourage you at the end to come and find these two ladies to ask questions in person or to get their information to reach out to them after the fact. Additionally, I will be tweeting from the front row here, and so you can tweet me at Museum of Emily if you have questions that you want asked during the Q&A. So without any further ado, here's Miranda.
All right, thanks guys, and thank you for your patience as we figure out technology. That always makes me laugh when we're at a technology conference, and there's always technology glitches. Thank you. As Emily said, I'm Miranda Kerr. I'm a manager of digital learning at Shedd Aquarium. Shedd Aquarium is in Chicago. We're the #1 cultural institution in Chicago, one of the largest aquariums in the United States. We have over 32,000 animals in our collection. So we're a little bit different than some of the museums here that have art or history collection. We consider ourselves having live animals in a museum. And I work in the learning division. I'm in learning programs. Our learning division is made up of 3 departments: learning programs, guest engagement, and learning planning and evaluation. And a lot of what we do is thinking about how we can reach our learners to change what they think, what they feel, and what they do to protect aquatic life. And our programs have a huge range. We have teens who are going out doing stewardship. We take them canoeing. We take them snorkeling in the Bahamas. We build underwater robots. We have teacher professional development. We do behind-the-scenes tours with our volunteers. We do all kinds of learning programs. But today, what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is the School Group's Reimagined project. So, in the years that I've worked at Shedd Aquarium, a lot of our field trip programs have been in the classroom, and we still have been innovative and hands-on and tried to bring a great experience to our students. But we had the opportunity through an IMLS grant, Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, to really dig down into how could we reimagine what that field trip experience looks like. How can we think about what teachers and students really need, and how can we better connect them to our animals? Like many of you in your education departments, we have classrooms that are kind of set aside. I won't call them in the basement, but they don't have any windows, and they are separated from where our animals are, separated from our exhibits. We wanted to kind of shift that scope and think about how we could make even stronger connections and maximize the field trip time. Again, I don't know how many of you work in education, but a lot of our field trip groups arrive at 10 or 10:30, go to an aquatic show, have maybe a half an hour, and then they got to eat lunch and get back on the bus by 1 o'clock. And so you have this very limited time that you're working with, and we wanted to maximize that. We also really want to think about how could we be an innovative leader in how we think about field trips. Now, this didn't just happen with learning. This was truly a interdepartmental project, and we had representatives from all of these departments at the table as we thought about what we wanted to be for students and teachers and how we could brainstorm how this could change. Obviously, we had evaluation, and I'll go through a lot of evaluation and how we use that to help iterate our app. Obviously, we had the learning group, but we also brought in technology and our media department. This was an internally built app by our IT team. We brought in our animal care staff so we could get their expertise. One of the programs that came out of it has them be acting like a junior aquarist, so we brought in their expertise, and all these departments worked together. So how did we start? So after we thought about, We did some preliminary front-end research and thinking about what do students and teachers need. We did focus groups and we did surveys asking them, what's your motivation for taking a field trip? What kind of features do you like in a field trip? What are you hoping students will experience? And then after that, we brainstormed some ideas. And to test them, we started off with paper prototypes. So the image on the far left, it's very hard to read the text, I understand, but it's just a white piece of paper that was handed to chaperones and teachers. And it has 8 directives on it and some instructions for how to use a free app that's available called Sketch. And the one in the center is a screenshot of Sketch. It's very simple. You can take pictures, you can draw over them, you can add text. But we knew those were some of the features we'd eventually want in our app. So instead of building the app first, we tested those features and got an idea of what students would do with that. And this helped us determine a couple of things. One, the wording in the directions themselves. We could get a feel for, is this wording confusing? Does it make sense? Are they taking pictures and annotating how we want them to, or do we need to change that wording? Is 8 steps a good number? Is it too many? How long does it take them to get through the exhibit and do this experience? The one on the right is another example where we had them go through and look at a habitat and then look for evidence that an aquarist had worked there. Did they see food or someone taking care of the animals? And that would be another paper prototype that we're able to use. So then from all of this, we came up with a suite of 4 experiences. They all are built very similarly in the same shell of an app. We call the 4 experiences Science Tech Treks. 2 of these are for kindergarten through 2nd, and 2 are for 3rd through 5th. Another thing that came out of our original pilot testing is that those age groups use iPads very differently. In kindergarten through 2nd, you have a lot of students who don't know how to read yet or who don't know how to write yet, and so they need to work very closely with their chaperone or their teacher lead, and so those were kind of designed to work as a group of 4 or 5 students. For science investigators and habitat designers for 3rd through 5th grade, those students are more independent. They want to just take that tablet and be able to work on it themselves with a partner, and so those were designed as more of a partner project. And all of them kind of helped us to get at the same learner goals of wanting them to explore science skills, make connections with animals, think about careers at a place like an aquarium. So that's kind of what the descriptions of them. And then what are we hoping they got out of Science Tech Treks? Students were able to take photos, make observations, engage with and connect with animals. They spend more time in the exhibits. They develop science skills. The teachers get a digital copy of what they created. This is something that was unique that we really wanted to do. Teachers kept saying over and over they wanted to connect to classroom curriculum. They wanted to do something that their students would be able to connect with. Well, if you are a teacher, if you've ever taken or observed a field trip, there are groups of students everywhere, and usually as the teacher, you still have to be with a small group of students. You don't always know what's happening in the other groups. So this was a way when this field trip experience is over, the teacher gets to see all of the digital work that his or her students created and can apply that back in the classroom. And then that can also be connected to pre and post activities, which we designed and have on our website, so the teacher can further that connection. So evaluation is very important to us. As I mentioned, we have a learning planning and evaluation team, as well as our audience research and evaluation team. So we looked at front-end, formative, and summative evaluation, and I'll dig into some of the things that we found in each of these. But we started with teacher surveys and focus groups. We did user testing. We continue to collect staff reflections, as they're the ones that are actually executing this program. We did observations, including case studies and group sampling to see what are students doing with this app, how are they spending their time, are they staying on task, and then a student work checklist. So because the teachers get emailed a digital copy of that work, we as Shed Aquarium also get a digital copy of that work, and we're able to look for learner outcomes in the things that they're creating. So what does this look like in action? So in the very first school year we did this, 2015 to 2016, we had over 8,000 learners take these Science Tech Trek programs from 125 different schools, almost 300 of these programs. So some successes. Now we're in a very early evaluation analysis phase. We just got all this information. We're still teasing through it and figuring out how we want to present it, what this looks like for the next phase. But we do have teachers saying things like, the learners enjoyed taking pictures, they enjoyed interacting with a live animal, and then probably most importantly, the activity encouraged student engagement and collaboration. And then that iterative design process. So our learning staff worked very, very closely with our technology department, with our IT department. Because it was an in-house app, we were able to iterate over the course of the whole school year. We were able to say, hey, we need to change this, we need to add that. And we collected that. We had staff evaluations, and those went into just a Survey Monkey. We had shared Google Docs where we could keep notes, and then we had a shared spreadsheet with our IT team that indicated changes we needed made. And some of those were really small, like we wanted to modify a directive. A third grader may not understand when you say find an animal in an exhibit. Exhibit can mean different things, but if you say habitat, that's a word that they understand. And so just making small changes like that, our learning staff were actually able to do, because the way the app pulled from the spreadsheet, we could just change the content ourselves if it was small. But then adjusting the app tools was a big thing that happened. I don't know if you can see it, but across that top bar, there's these different tools that allow them to interact. They get a prompt that says, take a picture of a fish and trace the mouth and then make a prediction about what it eats. Or that says, observe a habitat, what kind of things are in that habitat, circle them. But those different tools, some of them started a little differently, like the eraser was just a rectangle. Well, kids didn't recognize that as an eraser, so it got changed to add a line through it and it looked like it was erasing a line. The color changing tool originally was just a solid block, but kids didn't know you could tap on that to change the color that you were drawing with, so we added a bar below it that had 5 color choices, so you realize that's a changing app. And then we added new tools. The eraser tool works great, except it also erases the photo that was taken. So if you're annotating a photo and you go to erase your circle, you also erase the face of your fish. So we added an undo, redo, and that was much more helpful for students to kind of create what they wanted to create in their science journal. And then the number of steps changed. We found that initially it was just too many. If you can see at the bottom of the app, again, it's a little hard to see on the picture, but it shows each step of the app, and we determined there were just too many things we were asking them to do in that 45 minutes to an hour, so we're able to reduce that. And then one thing we're still working on is having multiple directives on one page. So if the page says, take a picture of a fish, trace its mouth, predict what it eats, all the students would take a picture. They would all of them circle the mouth, but getting to that third thing of then writing predictions was just too many things on one page. So right now we're adding some new things to the app to be able to pull a picture onto the next page of the app, so that you could potentially ask them to do one thing on the first page and another thing on the second page. That's still in the process of being built. When we first started, the app needed Wi-Fi to pull all this content into it, but I don't know what your Wi-Fi is like in your building, but in an aquarium that is concrete and water everywhere, Wi-Fi is a huge deal. We have dead zones. We had to put boosters in, but being able to make the app Wi-Fi free was huge. We didn't have as many glitches. It worked more smoothly. That was another thing that happened in the course of last year. So then this year will be a little less iterative. We won't be making as many of these little changes, but we're going to just collect data and continue to do that for the next year. So we also looked at students' work. That, as I mentioned, that digital journal that the students create, we can also pull as SHED. So we started to look to meet these learner outcomes. Are they increasing the awareness of needs of animals? Things like if they design a habitat and they say things like, oh, I'm going to put salt water in because a hermit crab needs salt water to molt, or I'm going to put a tree in because a hermit crab needs a tree to be able to climb. That awareness of needs of animals is one of our learner outcomes. They use investigative tools and techniques. They use these tablets to document their exploration, and then using observation and inference techniques to investigate questions about animals. And that we have evidence from, like in this picture, it asked them to take a picture of a fish swimming near the top and to predict why. And so this one, they thought they were looking for food. Another example, they took a picture of an animal and they said, our animal turns a lot when it swims. We think it does this because it needs to check its surroundings. And so that's one way we're checking off they're meeting these learner outcomes, looking through the student work. Student observations. So we wanted to know, how are they spending time during this program? And so we had our evaluation staff watch students. Sometimes they would follow just one student. Sometimes they would do scan sampling of an entire group of students on this field trip. And we noted if they were doing something program related. So directly in the app, are they taking pictures? Are they writing descriptions? Are they working on their digital science journal? Are they doing something SHED related? So they're not in the app, but maybe they're looking at fish or reading exhibit signage or observing an animal. And then random social play, talking, goofing around with our friends, typical field trip type of things. So if you look at program related, we originally had people saying they're only using the program 1/3 to 2/3 of the time. But if you add in the shed related, the total becomes 80 to 87% across the 4 apps. And that's huge. And that's something we actually really wanted. We didn't want a tablet app where they just were like this in the tablet, face to tablet the entire time. We wanted something that would slow them down, spend time in our exhibits, really feel a connection with our animals. And so we're accomplishing that by what they're doing with the program and then also what they're doing in the exhibits. This is just a couple pictures of schools sharing out about the Science Tech Trek apps, tweeting pictures at us of their students in the galleries connecting with the animals. And so what does the future look like? So we're hoping to collect more data. We really consider this next year our data collection year. We're continuing to do teacher surveys to see what teachers think about this program, continuing our student observations to see if students are using the app how we think they are. But instead of constantly iterating, this next year we'll be creating a schedule of when we're going to assess and make changes periodically. We'd also like to design a system where we can get volunteer feedback in a more official capacity. We have volunteers who execute these programs as well as staff. And so right now, anecdotally, a volunteer might tell a staff member, this direction was confusing, or this age group had a problem with this today, and we note that. But we want to have a space where volunteers can give feedback and value their evaluation as well. And then looking at the role of social interaction in field trips, how is that teachers, chaperones, and shed staff supporting their field trip? And then this is one that I'm really interested in. How are teachers using these digital products that they're given after the field trip? How can we measure that? That's a difficult one. As you probably know, if you've ever tried to figure out what happens after they leave your institution. But it's one we're really interested in. We're sending them all of this student work. Are students presenting on it? Are they sharing it with their parents and caregivers? Are teachers having them continue to do more reports back in the classroom to connect to curriculum? So that's a big question. In terms of the app itself, we'll continue updating any technical glitches that arise and revising some of the directives to simplify or clarify, but then making sure that those new directives or changes still meet the learner outcomes. And then we're also really hoping to explore additional options for accessibility. Right now, there is a tool in the app where you can hold it down and speak, and it'll type out their words. So for the younger learners, they can still feel like they're entering their words into this science journal. But we'd like to add functionality so that it can read the directions to them, and possibly looking at other languages as well to make it even more accessible. So I would love to talk to you guys more about Science Tech Treks. As Emily mentioned, my Twitter handle is Miranda RHK, and then if you don't have Twitter, I'm mkerr@shedaquarium.org. And I have a couple of bit.ly links for to take a look at the Science Tech Treks video or the Science Tech Trek pages on our website. Those are just bit.ly/Tech Treks K-2 or 3-5. And then you can follow Shed Learning, which is our learning handle for Shed that I manage as well. But I want to specifically say thank you to all the Shed staff that are on this project. I'm here representing, I'm the only one here from Learning, but and I was on the team that helped develop this app originally, but right now it's being managed by another programs manager. Her name's Lydell, and we have a whole team of learning specialists and volunteers that execute this program for students every day. So just a big shout out to them. And then does anyone have any questions? Like 5 minutes.
I have several questions about this project.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
How does your organization handle FERPA-related concerns? Because you are collecting data from students, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm. What kind of concerns? What was that word?
Family, Educational, and Privacy Rights Act.
Yes. So how do we... Good question. So a couple of things. When the work gets sent to the teacher, it has names connected to it because the teacher knows their own students. When it gets saved by Shed, the names are wiped. So when an evaluation staff goes to look through this, they'll see a drawing of a hermit crab and the habitat they built, or pictures they took of fish and how they circled them, but we won't see any student names. So that is separated, so you won't have that personal data. And it's a really good question because originally one of the things we wanted to do at the end of the app app, just kind of for fun, was something like take a group photo with the animal that you observed, but then we would have had to pull all those photos because we can't save those photos. The teacher could have had them, but we couldn't. So we eliminated that step in the app as well. So it's a very good question, is how you think about that. Yeah. Does that answer your question at all in terms of that part? Yeah.
On the more curatorial side,
Mm-hmm.
that word is politicized here in a different way than inside this application.
Mm-hmm.
How are those teachers tied to their students?
So
You aren't sending the wrong students.
excellent. So when you open up the app, the staff log in with a password, and they select from that day, it'll have a list of all the schools that are there that day. And so you'll click on the school and the science tech trick program they've registered for and open up the apps and hand them to students already opened up and in the correct, for the correct teacher. So then when the work gets finished, at the very last page has like a finish and send that either the students can do or will do it as the iPads are turned back in. And then the finish and send emails it to that teacher that is from the original drop-down menu. Good question. I didn't explain that. There is a page that our staff or volunteers see that the teacher and students do not see. It's also right now, it's just an internal app. It just lives on our iPads at the aquarium. It's not external yet, where you can't download it at the App Store. It just lives on our devices right now. Yeah.
But there are still some Wi-Fi dependencies, right?
Yes.
For example, the registration, right?
Yes. So excellent question. So there are still Wi-Fi dependencies. So each day, our learning staff and volunteers have to turn on all the iPads, make sure they're connected, and start the programs. And then at the end of each program, they sync and close them. So for all four of the Science Tech Trek programs, they all end at the same place. There is a cart in the exhibits where they all come back to, and that cart has good Wi-Fi signal. It's like in a sweet spot of Wi-Fi, so they can all be synced as they come back to the cart.
How do you handle content? Is it still a CMS attached to it?
So
Because if you have, if you say content, it will load, or every time you have to change content, you have to hard code it,
Oh, yeah, it pulls. So I'm not an IT person. I'm digital learning. My background's in science and education. But I think what you're asking is how is it pulling the content? So it pulls the images and the text from some folder on our server. So we can go in and change those images and change the text, and it pulls from that every day.
Right, so you do it initially, you load it.
Yes, you load it at the very beginning. They do the whole experience, does not need Wi-Fi, and at the end it needs Wi-Fi again. And hopefully in the next year we're getting a whole building Wi-Fi upgrade, so that will become even easier to do. But right now we start the experience in a place where we have good Wi-Fi, and we bring it back and end it in a place where we have good Wi-Fi. So it's loaded and ready to go. Does that help answer that question? Okay, great. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, if you think of other ones, please send me a tweet or an email. Thanks, everyone, very much.